Did Trump turn his back on gun owners just a few weeks after we helped put him in office? That's what I want to look at today, as we are going to take a closer look at one of his most important cabinet picks, which is Attorney General. And he has nominated Pam Bondi. Now, when it comes to somebody that is 100% bipolar in their view of the Second Amendment, he couldn't have picked the most perfect candidate when it comes to that, because she has flip-flopped on the second in more ways than one. So we're going to look at all that, but I also want to talk about one important factor that some other people may not be talking about when it comes to this cabinet position specifically, and this pick specifically. Of course, I want your opinion, because they will be strong. Mine will be strong. I'm going to give you mine. I want to hear yours after the video. Let me know if you think that Trump actually flipped on us, and let me know what you think of my opinion down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, let me go ahead and say, it is not my job to defend Trump 100%. I like a lot of the stuff that he does. I think he was 10,000% better than the alternative for sure. And so that was kind of the choice that gun owners had. But we know anytime you vote for somebody, you have to be vigilant, stay vigilant, and hold their feet to the fire. I've said that the whole time. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. Now, Trump said just a month ago, in October of 2024, depending on when you're watching this video, I guess, but he just said that he was going to appoint somebody to Attorney General that was going to protect and defend the Second Amendment and not allow it to be weaponized against law-abiding citizens. Well, his first pick was that person. Now, we're not going to be looking at allegations against Matt Gaetz, because that's for somebody else's channel to look at. Those are allegations. We don't know if it's true. You don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's true. Those are simply allegations. And look, we know there have been false accusations against a number of different people, including Trump. Okay? So at the end of the day, I want you to keep that in mind. But one thing I do know about Matt Gaetz is his support for the second unfounding. I don't know that we would have ever had an attorney general that could have been a better pick to defend the Second Amendment, especially considering he wanted to dismantle the ATF.
There is no timeline in which the ATF, under any administration, would become an ally. We need to abolish the ATF before they abolish our Second Amendment rights. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms should be the name of a chain of convenience stores in Florida, not a federal agency.
That would have been a beautiful thing to see. And as far as I know, his voting record speaks for itself. He's always voted in favor of, never against people's rights. So, unfortunately, that didn't come to pass. And so now we have Pam Bondi. Well, who is she? Well, she actually served as Attorney General in Florida from 2011 to 2019. And some of the good things she's done has been supporting people's right to stand their ground in Florida, right? Florida was the first one to pass that law back in 2005, and she's a supporter of that. Now, one thing to remember with Pam Bondi is she actually has talked about this a few times. She had a stalker when she was a prosecutor in her 20s, and so that stalker actually ended up taking his own life a couple years later. It was like 4 years she dealt with this. So because of that experience, she actually ended up buying a gun, learning how to shoot the gun, and so I think that really kind of plays a factor into some of her support for people's rights to self-preservation. She actually opposed an assault weapons ban in Connecticut after Sandy Hook. By the way, there's a great article by The Reload that I was able to pull some information from. Definitely want to give them credit there. She also supports having what she calls highly trained teachers in schools carrying firearms.
I think it would have to be very highly trained teachers, former military, former police. We have plenty of them in our schools, and people who have just an expert shooting ability and skills. It takes a lot of skills, and you know, we have air marshals on planes, and we have to protect our kids in our schools.
She actually interpreted Florida law to allow security guards to be able to carry on campus. Even though in the language it said that you couldn't, the way she interpreted Florida law, she said they absolutely can. She opposed that assault weapons ban. She also opposed 18 to 20-year-olds being able to buy pistols and ammo, right? So there's some good things there, right? But then at the end of the day, she's also done things like supporting gun confiscation, right? And so for people that are mentally ill, this is a tough subject. And so I totally understand that. But what kind of mental illness are we talking about, right? There's different levels to this, right? And this is kind of part of the problem, because anytime you call somebody mentally ill, you automatically think that person is just unable to think for themselves and they're totally out of their mind. It's not always schizophrenia, right? You could have anxiety, OCD, right? It's technically a mental condition, PTSD. So you're telling everybody that has PTSD from the military or any number of really traumatic events that they can't own firearms. Essentially what she said is that, within 24 to 72 hours of them being released, law enforcement can then look at and request that a judge keep the firearms from these people, basically taking property from somebody over a mental illness. There's listed, I just looked it up, 200 plus mental disorders. But that's not always, like I said, just schizophrenia or something really dramatic like that. So I don't think it's right to tell somebody with OCD or anxiety, things that can be treated, right, fairly simply. I don't think it's right to tell them, oh, yeah, we're going to take your firearms until we think that you're cured of your anxiety, or you get over your anxiety, or, you're over your OCD, or any number of things. I think that's totally wrong. But then she scolded Joe Biden on his red flag proposals, right? Which is kind of the same thing. You're basically saying, okay, I think my neighbor or my friend or my ex-wife or my lover or my girlfriend or whatever is unfit. I think they're a danger to themselves. You need to look at them. They get taken in. Their guns get taken away from them. And then due process happens. Now, this is something we've seen with Trump as well, right? Now, this meeting after Parkland, essentially, it was 1 week after Parkland, when they were talking back and forth, it was essentially take the guns first and then the due process. Remember that whole thing? It's not a good look. That's one of the things we've talked about with Trump that happened the first time. When he said take the guns first, it's like, whoa, hey, oh, well, I know you say some stuff that's off the wall, but at the end of the day, that's not something you just throw out there, right? Okay, so you gotta, with this kind of stuff, you gotta be careful with the way that you're wording it, okay? So there's not only that, though. She actually supported the rifle ban, the Parkland shooting ban that upped the age to 21 in Florida, okay? Also an open carry ban. She supported that as well. So you may think, yikes, right? How does she even feel about this? It's hard to tell exactly which way she's going to go, right? I don't know if it's like just a routine. She wakes up, she says, hey, today I'm going to feel very pro 2A. Right? And we're going to pass a bunch of stuff. And then the next day she wakes up and she's like, you know what? I think all that was really bad. I'm actually going to go against it now. She's going to have a bunch of people going crazy if this is the way it falls. And hopefully, because of what I've seen, what she did after Parkland, it's not just an emotional response. I'll let those jokes carry on in the comments. You guys have fun with that. She was the first woman attorney general in Florida. You don't want somebody having an emotional response to some kind of tragedy, and unfortunately, it's bound to happen in the future. It's going to. But here's one of the silver linings, if you will. This is not in defense of everything Trump does, but this is just saying that one of the good things we have to look forward to, first of all, I can't wait to see the confirmation hearing, because I know there's senators out there that are just going to absolutely get to the bottom of how she feels about certain things. They're going to use all these examples as things against her, and let's see exactly where she falls, because we need to have a clear understanding of that. Second of all, the Supreme Court. We do have that, right? And just like what we saw when Trump messed up, one of the few things he did in his first administration against gun owners, right? There were some good things he did. One of the bad things he did was the bump stock ban. Right? We saw SCOTUS reverse that. Now, of course, that was years after the initial ban, right? And people had destroyed their own property, or they turned it in, or whatever the case, or maybe they didn't. Hopefully they didn't. But then that decision was reversed. There is a potential for 2 justices maybe to retire and we know Trump's history on picking Supreme Court justices pretty good, right? And then other conservative justices that view the Second Amendment favorably, right? So that is one of those big things from his first term that is going to be passed on to his second term. Could end up being that he actually chooses the majority of Supreme Court justices. So that is an important thing. And they help overturn his bump stock ban. That should have never happened. That was one of the stains on his first administration, some of the policies, right? And that was a knee-jerk thing after Las Vegas. So that's what we don't want. We don't need any more knee-jerk reactions. But we do have that. And we know, again, I try to look at this as objectively as possible, right? And so even though we overwhelmingly made a way better choice this past November, we need to make sure that he puts people there that are willing to defend, not just defend though, but promote, expand the Second Amendment, make it easier for people to exercise their rights. It's like the stalemate, right? And so it's kind of a net neutral, I guess, but there's also the ATF director, right? We know that names being thrown around, actually pro 2A guys that know the community, unlike frickin' Dettelbach, that could be a good thing, right? Even though we would like to all see them just defunded at the end of the day. I don't know that that's going to happen. Probably not. But again, it kind of went from, oh man, this might be really exciting under Gaetz and his Second Amendment views to we have no idea what she's going to do. We had no idea what Trump was going to do in his first term. And he impressed a lot of us. He impressed a lot of the things that he did economically and all that kind of stuff, right? When it comes to firearms, we know he's not the most pro 2A guy. But at the end of the day, again, there have been very few, no presidents since at least Ronald Reagan that have been so open about concealed carrying. I don't even know if Reagan even talked about actually carrying a gun. He probably did at some point. Trump has talked a lot about expanding gun rights and defending those rights. And so I think this is a terrible pick. I really do, just simply based on everything that I've said. It's kind of a net neutral. That's where I'm looking at it. It's not a positive. It's probably not a negative. I guess it just depends on what side of the bed she wakes up on. We're just going to have to see. Again, can't wait for the Senate confirmation hearings because I think that's going to be probably the best part of this because I know there's some senators that are really going to go after her on the things she's done against the Second Amendment in the past. But of course, I'd love to hear your opinion, man. What do you think about Trump's pick here? Do you think he went against gun owners already? Do you think it's a net neutral, maybe a positive, a negative? Maybe you're seeing it from a totally different angle. I can't wait to see some of the comments that you guys come up with. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, holding down.